Okay, now I think we are live and ready to go. I'm just remembering to press record so that I don't do this and get to the end and I have nothing to show for it. So welcome to our Tuesday night get together, kick back, grab a cuppa, grab a glass of wine, chill. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about different aspects of my formula for success. And tonight, it's a little bit more about understanding time and just exploring the concept that do we actually perceive time differently as we get older? And is time fixed or is it all relative? Is it about our perspective? Just a couple of little things like that. It's not possibly an actual strategy that you would think about using. I just thought it was a little bit interesting and that perhaps you guys might like to hear a little bit more about it. So without further ado, I am going to pop up my starting slide if I can find it. There it is. I always manage to get lost somewhere when I'm doing this. One day, I think we should have bets as to one day when everything will actually be perfect. But in the meantime, I'm taking imperfect action and you get the idea. So, as I said, do we really experience time differently? And with these little talks each week, really, it's just about little tidbits and strategies and things that I can share with you that will possibly help you think a little bit differently about how you approach your business. Might give you an aha moment, might give you a strategy that you think fabulous. That's something I can do right away. So without further ado, let's explore this question. So in his 1890 book, so this is not a brand new theory or concept, The Principles of Psychology, the American philosopher and psychologist William James wrote that the same space of time seems shorter as we grow older. Now, this was just something at the time that he was theorizing, but since then, his observation has actually now been verified by science. And our perception of the passage of time or how long things seem to take depends on how old we are. And time actually does appear to speed up as we get older. So think back to when you were a child, those last few days before Christmas or another holiday or something that you were really anticipating. That time just felt like an age. It felt like it took forever to actually get to Christmas. But have you noticed that as you grow older, time seems to fly past all too quickly? So before long, the event that you were actually anticipating is just a memory and it's accelerating away from you. Hands up if right now, late January time, that's how you feel about Christmas and New Year, that it came around really quickly, but now it's gone and it feels like an absolute distant memory. And you actually wish that you could maybe hold on to the experience for a little bit longer. Now, this isn't just your imagination. This is actually how people perceive time. So there's a few different theories as to how this works, but so there's no actual real consensus or definitive correct answer. But as I said, it is a fact that we experience time speeding up as we get older. So one theory that's been espoused is that the brain encodes novel experiences more than familiar ones, and that we therefore tend to remember new experiences more readily than those that have happened 100 times. So we easily forget the monotonous things we've done repeatedly, but if something different happens just once, we tend to remember it. So what does this mean? So if you take the same route to work or to the office or to your business, and every day when you get there, you do the same thing day in, day out, that actually accelerates time for us. And scarily enough, before we know it, we're in middle age and we're actually wondering, where did all that time go? Now, when you think about children, they encounter lots of new things, so time passes more slowly for them. However, when we reach adulthood, the time speeds up because we simply tend to have fewer new experiences. So one way as an adult to literally slow down time is to engage in novel experiences. Think things like learning a new language, mastering a new dance, going somewhere new on holidays, etc. Or even something as simple as varying your usual travel route if you're heading to the office or going to a regular meeting that you go to, say, once a week. And in some quarters, some neuroscientists now actually believe that novel experiences can help stave off Alzheimer's. So that's good to know. Now, another theory, which was first put forward by the French philosopher Paul Janet in 1897, that's only gaining more traction right now because it might be simply a different way of looking at the earlier theory, is that as we age, a year becomes a smaller and smaller fraction of our whole life up to that point. So it kind of makes sense. And some scientists call this log time because time is compressed at the beginning, but speeds up towards the end. So, for example, when you're a 10-year-old, a year is 10% of your age at that point. So it does seem to last for quite a long time. However, for a 40-year-old, a year is only 2.5% of their age. So it actually seems to pass 4 times more quickly. And then for an 80-year-old, it passes even faster, about double the speed it did when they were 40, because a year has now become 1.25% of their age. So if that's the case, then think about this. How would a newborn baby experience time? So the first few moments, if it's seen as a percentage of how long you've been alive, those first few moments must feel like eons, because that's the entirety of their life up until that point. They literally only know the present moment. So, in fact, when you think about it, the point at which human consciousness switches on may even feel like infinity. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't remember literally the first few seconds when I was born. But it is an interesting concept just to play around with in your mind, because when your consciousness switches on, there is only new and everything is new. So in those first few moments after your birth, you've actually got no perception of anything outside of yourself to actually attach labels and meaning to. While eons might pass in your experience, it actually only lasts a few minutes for your parents. And then over the next few years, your parents experience you growing up much more quickly than it feels to you. This is a psychological experience, of course, but it's real all the same. Time is relative and not just psychologically relative. Want to hear more about that? So, seemingly even more bizarre, time physically moves at different speeds too. So time actually passes at different rates according to the shape of space, which actually bends for different reasons. So our clocks and watches more or less agree, because Earth is in this place in the universe where the shape of space is pretty uniform, but gravity bends space. So we don't notice it because we all more or less feel the same gravity on Earth. But when you're out in space, you don't actually feel the Earth's gravity. And as bizarre as this might sound, your watch would actually run a little bit faster. And it's not just your watch, it's time itself that runs faster. So with GPS satellites, they actually have to account for this, because if they didn't, Google Maps would be out by roughly 10 kilometers a day, and the sat nav on all the other location services on your phone would actually be useless within a few hours. So it's interesting when you think about all the things and the calculations and understanding all of this to actually create something like a sat nav that takes into account all of these things. And then even more bizarrely, if you were near the edge of a black hole and subject to super strong gravity, your time would stretch like spaghetti. And if you put your arm out pointing away from the black hole, your arm would actually age 100 years in the blink of an eye. But these are actually obviously pretty extreme conditions in space. And for us here on Earth, time runs at the same speed for all of us. Well, pretty much just about. And here's another odd, bizarre fact I came across. As strange as it sounds, in our homes, time actually passes more quickly upstairs than it does downstairs, though the actual difference is imperceptible to us. For argument's sake, over a typical lifetime of, say, 80 years, living on the first floor of the house will age you about 1,000th of a microsecond. So as I said, it's imperceptible, it's measurable, but we can't tell the difference. But that 1,000th of a microsecond, I get my mouth working, more than living on the ground floor. And in the same way, your head ages faster than your feet, which again, imperceptible, but interesting and bizarre scientific facts for you tonight. So I found when I was reading about all this stuff, I actually found it quite interesting. So I hope that you guys have found it at least a little bit interesting tonight. And it felt to me that perhaps there could be some explanations in there as to why time actually flows when you are working truly aligned with your purpose and your passion. And we've all heard about people who are in flow, and they're not aware of how much time has actually passed. Now, I don't pretend to know the answers for any of that, but just kind of be aware of how time seems to flow for you. And when you're doing something that you really love or that really lights you up, just be aware of, has the time just literally disappeared when you're in flow? I mean, it's not like the be all and end all, but it is something to be conscious and aware of. So for me, one of the key areas that I focus on in my Foundations of Success program is how we can better manage the time that we have available so that we can be more productive in the same time frame. So it's not about doing more and working longer hours. It's about setting the boundaries of this is either how much time I have available, or this is how much time I want to devote to working on and in my business. And if you want to get more done, progress further towards your goals, you need to understand the strategies of how to be more productive and how to get more out of the same amount of time. So if this sounds like something you might like to know more about, or you'd like to have a chat with me in terms of what strategies could we implement for you that would specifically work in your business so that we could boost your productivity, just comment below the video and we'll be in touch to organize a time to catch up. So I hope you enjoyed that. That's a little bit shorter and sweeter than normal. I normally aim to talk to you for about half an hour, but that's not quite half an hour. But I look forward to catching up with you all again, same time, same channel, next Tuesday night, when we are talking about, and she says racking her brains because she didn't write a note before she started. We're talking about values. So make sure you join me for that. So thank you, everyone, and we will talk soon.